reveal the secrets of the universe by the travel through time. Only when we take the inward journey will we discover the true universe, the forgotten truth about the self, the supreme and the eternal world drama. Find your answers from the experienced traveler, Sr.Denise Lawrence, senior teacher over 40 years from Brahma Kumari's World Spiritual University. Thursday, commencing the 4th of June. We welcome you, the seekers, to travel through time from the ancient wisdom to the modern way of living. The truth is that the seeker can come from many different backgrounds, living all kinds of lives. The truth is that you don't have to go anywhere. No bags to pack, but you do have to be ready to travel. Do you ever look at the sky and adorn the splendid galaxy and admire the infinity of the universe? Do you ever linger alone in the night, pondering the true meaning of life? What is the universal truth? Who am I? Where will I go after death? What am I doing here now? Relation of the universe and human answer to spirit and soul are in our inner true self and innate wisdom. Let us explore and reveal the secret of the universe to different pictures and symbols in our mind. This is the 7 keys of enlightenment of the traveler. First, the light between the eyes. Second, the alpha point. Thirdly, the silent union. Fourth, the justice of karma. Fifth, the never-ending cycle. Sixth, recognizing the time. The 7, the door to the future.
In the darkness and chaos of this world, where do I find the guiding light?
Step into the light. Fill yourself with might.
Come join us on this journey to reveal the secrets of the universe. Accompanied by Sister Denise from the UK and Sister La from Thailand. Hello, I'm Pratul Bosley and I'll welcome you to the 7th episode of the series, The Door to the Future. Today will be our final destination on this journey, our last episode of this series. As we begin this journey of understanding our true self, our true consciousness, moving beyond the temporary societal labels to our original form of peace, a point of light. We have come a long way from seeing the light between our eyes to experiencing the silent union between ourselves and the Supreme Soul. We appreciated the justice of the law of karma and recognized the current time in relation to the world cycle. We're now ready to walk in our golden future. In today's episode, the doorstep to the future, we will be accompanied by Sister Denise. We were told heaven is up in the sky, but with our third eye, we see it coming by as the bell rings and hell prepares to take a long goodbye. We have with us our dear sister Denise, who is from the UK, and she's played a crucial part in this series, more like the guiding compass in our journey to reveal the secret of the universe. Sister Denise, thank you so much for being with us all through and joining us on this final episode. We also have Sister La with us, another pioneer thinker from Thailand, who has been helping us since the beginning of this journey. Now I'll hand over to Sister La.
Welcome, Sister Denise. The last episode of the series to reveal the secret of the universe. So this is the 7th key of enlightenment. Congratulations to all of you who are watching this series or are such tireless travelers. Now Sister Denise is at the door to the future with the last key in her hand to unlock the treasure store. Soon all the keys will be yours. So let's see what's it like to get into the treasure store. Welcome again, Sister Denise.
Thank you so much, Sister La. It is probably the most subtle and the most tricky, the last key. And I like to compare it with a marathon. And marathon runners know that the last mile is the most telling, the most difficult, and it is the time when it is so easy to give up. But what is this last step? What is this last key? I'd like to introduce you to the concept of the age of confluence. Sister Bradwell said to us, hell is taking a long goodbye, maybe a very long goodbye, but after that goodbye, there is a hello from the world of heaven. And as she said to us, it's not somewhere up above, but why do people think of it as somewhere up above? Obviously, the space exploration has shown us very clearly that up above are planets and stars and galaxies, but no one has ever discovered a new planet where there is heaven. And this is because up above doesn't really mean up in the sky. Up above has another meaning. Up above refers to a higher stage of consciousness. And so this is the time, the confluence age, the time of spiritual evolution. And when we looked at the cycle and we looked at the philosophy of karma, we could see that over time there is degeneration and deterioration. But the cycle is a permanent movement, the perpetual motion of existence, which people have been looking to understand or trying to find a key to. And this is really our last key, how we go from the completely spiritually depleted state and rise to the highest level of consciousness, to our natural perfection, and what is involved in this, and how long does it take? We're used to the idea of evolution taking place over millions of years, and people really have faith in the idea of progress because we live in an age of technology, and so technological progress is definitely there. But what we also see is that the condition of humanity, the condition of people's lives, so many people, is getting more difficult. The climate change is causing severe disruption, the overpopulation, all of these things are showing us that while we do have technological progress, we also have something else. We have a real deterioration in the quality of life. And this idea of the confluence age explains this. And it's very interesting that it's not only the matter of technology progressing and human life quality degenerating, but there is another energy going on, which is the key one. And that is the energy of the Supreme Being, the energy of the Supreme Power, and the arrival of new knowledge about what it is to be human, new knowledge about the soul, new knowledge about life, about civilization, new knowledge about the way everything goes. And this confluence age is a period of time when many opposing energies are converging on each other. You have that intensely high, pure energy of God, energy of God's wisdom. Then you have the energy of science and technology, which is both for our comfort and benefit, but which is also creating weapons of mass destruction that have never been seen before in human history. And the circumstances for them to be released are also intensifying. And the masses of people's reaction to hardship and difficulties is also very intense. So what we are feeling and seeing is that the world as we know it is kind of fragmenting and turning into something that we don't know quite what that is. Being in the lockdown of COVID-19, we have hidden ourselves away from a lot of realities that are going on. But at the same time, many of us, many people in this world are feeling something's coming in. Something really extraordinary is coming in. And we really are on the cusp of the end of something old and the beginning of something new. So what really is heaven? It's not somewhere in the clouds where there are angels playing harps and that there's some big doors and some keys and you go up there and either you get let into heaven or you get sent down to hell. It's not really like that. But we would say that for a large number of people, the way the world is, the way their lives are, the way their karma is, many factors are there which are letting people know that life for many is already hell. And we don't want to live like this anymore. And so those of us who feel something new coming in will look for it, will search for that light, will search for that energy of purity and peace and higher consciousness and wisdom and understanding. Will search for the way for there to be human relationship based in love and recognition of one another's pure spirit. So these are the signs of a new civilization coming in, like a tide pushing its way in, and the old is just disappearing, fading, maybe getting forgotten. And so it's actually a very tricky time, because there are, in a confluence, normally confluence refers to where a river runs into the ocean, and where it is a mighty river like the Mississippi or the Brahmaputra or any of the great rivers, the Amazon, there's a huge disturbance when it hits the ocean, and the waters of the river going one way, the waters of the ocean going another way, dangerous currents are there. And so we are actually finding ourselves in the midst of all kinds of opposing currents, and sometimes we find ourselves in difficulty as we try to navigate the world of the Iron Age, we can say, the present day world, where we have to work, where we have to live, where we have to be part of the human community, where we have to deal with the realities of life. And then on the other hand, we have our spiritual awakening happening. And spiritual awakening means something really quite deep. On the one hand, it means that you are filled with joy and anticipation of coming into a higher consciousness and of becoming your true self, all of this. But at the same time, this is the time where karma accounts are being settled. And so we experience so many situations where we are really challenged. We may have to settle our accounts through illness, and there are many who are dealing with big problems, not just coronavirus, but so many issues, and not just physical issues. Mental health is also a big thing. So many people are experiencing depression. So many people are moved to take their own lives, even children. And the inner life of so many people is really, in some ways, catastrophic, dark, like the dark night of the soul. And we have to navigate through that. And for this, knowledge of the self, knowledge of the Supreme Being, and being able to latch on to that connection and draw light and draw power into ourselves makes it possible to navigate these troubled waters of this convergence, of this confluence. And so what do we have to do? Here it comes down to the practical question of, okay, knowing all these things and being in the midst of all of this, how should we proceed? How should we function? How should we operate? And one aspect of it is connected with karma. Another is to do with the practice of meditation. Another is to do with study. And then we look at lifestyle. And how do I live as a yogi, as a person who is practicing to be in higher consciousness, to draw power and virtues and wisdom directly from God, and at the same time to live and work with people who think very differently, who believe very differently, who have different values and attitudes, And so in this confluence age, it becomes necessary for us to live on at least 2 levels at the same time. I say at least 2 levels because there are actually more than 2 levels, but at least 2 levels. You can say one level is being in the world like everybody else, functional, being an active member of the community, being functional and effective in the workplace, being a loving and meaningful member of the family, whether it is the parent of children or in your role as a spouse or a daughter or daughter-in-law, son or son-in-law, uncle. There are so many relationships that we need to fulfill, and we must fulfill them well. And so one very beautiful training that the study gives us is think of yourself as a spiritual being who is an actor, and you are acting through this body, and you must understand your role, and you have many roles that you must play. When you're at home, you put on a different costume, a different consciousness, a different face. That is your home way of being. And when you go to work, then you're playing a different role. You wear different clothes, you have a different face, you have a different voice, you have to do things differently, you have a position that you must fulfill. There are responsibilities. And so we have to play that. Even in your commute between home and work, that is again another role, the role of the traveler to and fro between home and work. We also participate in the community. There is entertainment, there is sport, there is community life, there is political life. There are so many aspects of life that we are part of. And at the same time, the inner life is getting activated more and more. We have to share our time and divide our time so that we give ourselves enough time for alone time, time in solitude, time for ourselves to develop our spiritual side, time for study, time for developing relationship with other people who are also spiritually inclined, and time for the family, time for work, time for just taking responsibility for oneself. And all this has to be quite fine-tuned because you have only 24 hours in a day. So, do we waste our time? This is an important question because time is limited and we need downtime. Downtime is not wasted time. So we have to ask ourselves questions that what I'm doing with my time, the conversations I'm engaged in, the activities that I'm pursuing, are they meaningful? Are they helpful for myself and for others? Or are they just meaningless or trivial or maybe even negative? So detecting wasted time or negatively used time, it's important to put a cap on that. And this is where the concept of discipline comes in. There are so many things that we do. Each one of us is different, but things that we do that are time wasting, like how much time do we spend talking with other people about someone else behind their back and criticizing them? If we spend a lot of time doing that, that is also time wasted, time lost, time destroyed. So when we notice ourselves doing something, not necessarily that, but something which, in all honesty, we would say that this is not good use of my time. So then stop it and turn your attention to something that is good use of your time. We have to carve out time for meditation because most of us experience we have very little time. But by analyzing what we do with our time, we begin to realize that there are quite a few periods of time in the day which could be saved and applied to something more beneficial for the self, for study, for meditation, for quality time with our family, and being efficient in the workplace so that we can leave it all behind at the end of the workday. So these types of disciplines are good. In terms of karma, during the confluence age, it is a really important time for us to be able to sow seeds of pure karma. And we talked about karma in an earlier episode, but just to recapitulate, we have to do karma. And in the confluence age, one act of pure karma brings hundreds of thousands of fruits of pure results. And conversely, if we do one impure karma, it brings hundreds of thousands of impure fruits, which we have to. It brings hundreds of thousands of impure fruits, which we have to then eat. And we don't want to eat the bitter fruits of negative karma. And so we must apply our attention and our discipline and actively observe ourselves. What am I doing? Is it pure karma? Is it a waste of time and energy? Is it necessary? Is it negative? And so one of the very important things that we do in the consciousness of the soul and in the consciousness of the confluence age is to observe ourselves and write a report on ourselves, just for the self. How was my day? What did I do? Did I do something worthwhile? How many pure karmic seeds did I plant? And if I faced any challenges, and most days there are challenges, but if I faced any challenges, did I face them with courage, with integrity, with patience? How did I do? We're really evaluating ourselves day by day. And we also learn and become aware that each day is like a microcosm of your whole life. So just giving attention to yourself day by day and seeing, am I operating in a virtuous way? Am I operating on the basis of any arrogance or false ego or any other vices? And if so, what will I do to turn that around? If I'm experiencing challenges, opposition, what are the ways that I can use to get through those difficulties and emerge victorious from the challenge, pass the tests, not be afraid of taking tests. And even if we fail a test, it doesn't really matter, because you sit with yourself, you go over what happened, what was the key in me that made me fail, and what would I do to be successful? What would success look like? And so there's a lot of experimentation that must go on, because basically in the confluence age, we are making ourselves or creating ourselves on the basis of meditation and study, making ourselves into the individual units of the world of heaven. People want to go to heaven, but you would not go to heaven in your current body. In heaven, you would have a body that is so beautiful and healthy and natural. All the circumstances of heaven correspond to the pure soul. And so the confluence age is the time of preparing ourselves for that and going through transformation at many, many levels. Probably the last key transformation is the death of the ego. Everybody has some ego, but ego is very subtle and invisible to the one who has it, maybe visible to others who see it in you. But the trick is to be able to see how you are reflected in the eyes and words of others, so that you see what it is about yourself that is false, or that is unreal, or that is not really your higher consciousness, not really your real self, but a mask which is now no longer needed. And this mask covers your difficulties in this world, your traumas, your disappointments, your loss of faith in the self. So many things sit behind that mask of ego. And there are many things that all of us have done that we are not proud of, but they sit and they drive the ego. So when we are doing spiritual study, we're also doing deep inner work to go deep inside and find out the drivers that are driving this false ego. And little by little, it becomes clear to us, and little by little, we finish it off. And this is known as settlement of karma, or finishing off your negative karma that stands in the way between you and your perfect self, between you and your true self, between you and your higher consciousness. The people of heaven are called deities. And what is a deity? Deity is quite different from God. A deity is a person who is a giver. And the people of today, in some language, are called consumers. So this is a world of business, and the business people look at the people who will buy their products as consumers, and that whether it is physical objects or services or education or whatever it is, but we are consumers, and a deity is a giver. In many ways, we are not just consumers of services and goods, but because there is spiritual depletion, we very often are consumers of other people's energy. Or sometimes we want what someone has, and we do something to damage that person or disempower them so that we can get what they have. This is called jealousy. It could be professional jealousy, it could be personal jealousy, but jealousy is always indicated by harming someone in order to get what you want, that you don't have, or that you can't have, without harming them. And this is called a vice. And consumers have these vices, but deities are givers. Deities are called people who are complete. And there is an analogy with the moon, which is very interesting. As you know very well, we all love when the moon is full and the night is bright, and we gaze at the full moon that fills the atmosphere with its silvery light, and we feel good. And there is a deep symbolic meaning behind that, because the full moon refers to the final stage of a spiritual seeker, the final stage of someone who is meditating, studying, doing their inner work, developing themselves in all different ways. And especially it is about taking light. And as you know, the moon, the light of the moon is actually reflected light from the sun, which you see when you are on the dark side of the planet. When you're on the light side of the planet, you see the sun, you don't see the moon, but at night you're on the dark side. And when the moon is in a certain position, it reflects fully the light of the sun. And the sun is also symbolic for the Supreme Being. And we are like the moon. Sometimes we can reflect a little bit of light, sometimes half light, quarter, 3/4. But at some point, once a month, the full moon in all of its glory. And then 15 days later, it becomes the new moon with just a tiny sliver of light in the crescent moon. And that is really the state of people at this time. We have just a tiny bit of light. And while living in the confluence age, which is the dark side of the world, the dark side of civilization, we need to, through our minds, have such a connection with the sun of knowledge, the sun of power, the sun that is the Supreme Being or God, so that we take so much light through study, light through meditation, light through coming onto our higher consciousness, takes so much light that we become like moons and reflect the full light of the sun. That means all the darkness in ourself is gone. That means all the karmic accounts are settled, and there are no further debts, no further darkness, no further sign of negativity, no feelings of depression or weakness, no lack of self-esteem. All of this is finished off through the process of the inner work. So the confluence age, how long is the confluence age? Let us say it is one lifetime. So all of us are at a certain point in our lives. Some of us are very young, so we have a long period of time in front of us, all being well. And some of us are towards the later part of our lives. But whatever it is, we have the rest of this life in which gently, gradually, systematically to develop ourselves, to grow. We have time. And the confluence age is this time, very, very special time, which is kind of overlaid upon the time of the Iron Age, the dark time of the world. And it is also overlaid on the initial part of the new civilization that is coming, which is worldwide, which is extraordinary, which is so different from the world as we know it, but yet this is what will come, and it will come in the not too distant future. We do not have any clear timeline about this, but whatever it is something that we will see coming in our lifetimes. especially the young people, they are living through very hard times at the moment, but they will live to see a transformation of consciousness in the whole world, but it has to start somewhere. And so we start with the self. As each one awakens to this idea that, yes, I must use my time and energy to raise my level of consciousness and to become aware of spiritual knowledge that comes from the wisdom of the Supreme Being, who is also called the intelligence of the wise, the comforter of the heart, the ocean of peace and purity, the Almighty, the giver of all the powers that we need, all the powers, all the virtues, all the qualities, and above all the information that we need to become what we once were and what we truly are, to change from being a taker to being a giver. So the light in a deity is the light of spiritual virtues and spiritual strength. Imagine a civilization where everyone is so full that they share their beauty, their light, their wisdom with everyone. It is a time of great prosperity. In the world today, they say that even at this very high population level, at this very high pollution level, and with all the difficulties that we have in this world, it is said that there is enough to fulfill the needs of all of humanity. This much generous is the earth. But the second part of that sentence is that there is not enough for people's greed, enough for the need, but not for the greed. And so we have to look at ourselves and see, how do I fit in this spectrum? Am I satisfied with what I have, or do I feel that I don't have enough? Do I just want and want and want? And when a person is spiritually depleted, one of the things that is done is you want things, you want position, you want acclaim, you want recognition, you want food, you want clothes, you want technical devices, you want a fancy house, a fancy car, all sorts of things that we use to try and fill that hole in the soul. But it never does, because that hole is so deep that no amount of physical things or achievements can fill that. The only thing that can really fill that hole is the love that comes from the ocean of love. And love is such a powerful quality that comes from the Supreme, and that takes us from this rather hungry consumer to a very beautiful, fulfilled person who is a giver, a person who shares. And when individuals like that are populating the earth, then the earth feels like heaven. And when nothing is done based in violence, then it is a world of love. And so in the confluence age, we must look at to what extent we are participating in violence that we don't need to participate in. So one thing that we look at in our practice of the confluence age is what we eat, because it is said, you are what you eat. And so what are we eating? There is the practice of pure sattvic lifestyle. And part of that is to be vegetarian, because when we're eating meat, fish, birds, all of these things, we are participating in the destruction of the life of a creature that has a right to live. And they're not existing just so that we can kill them and eat them. The earth has produced enough for us to eat without participating in that kind of suffering. And nowadays, people are very aware of this. And so you see in the YouTube and Vimeo and here and there, you see many videos about the reality of what happens to the animals that are reared just to be slaughtered. And that then becomes part of our karma, and how easy it is to fill our stomach and to eat very well without being the cause of unnecessary death and miserable life for many creatures. So there are many things that we can do, easy things that we can do to make slight adjustments in our lifestyle, which also makes a big difference in our karma. And so we begin to do this. And as we do this more and more, we find that we feel better inside, we have a better relationship with the world of nature, we have better relationship with people, and we begin to have a really good, deep, loving, and meaningful relationship with the Supreme Being. With other people, we have many problems because we want them to be a certain way, which may be very convenient for us, but may be very unnatural for them. It's very normal for us to scold another person, to get angry with them, to do something against them, or to lose our temper. Sometimes even there is verbal abuse, there is physical violence that we do to children, to the elderly, and we don't need to do that. It is just because we don't have our inner power that we behave like that. But as you start to draw power from the Supreme Being, well, you realize that you don't have to do that. You can be loving. You can be tolerant of other people's mistakes. We don't really have to judge and condemn other people, but we do have to pay attention to, what am I doing? What is my karma? I am not responsible for the karma of another person, but I am responsible for my reaction to their karma. And having a reaction of arrogance or anger or violence is optional. And if I do that, then that is my negative karma. They will suffer for their negative karma, no doubt, but why should I suffer for someone else's negative karma? Someone is doing something negative. There are times when you do have to intervene and do something. But a lot of times, most times, your perception of their negativity is because it's inconvenient for you or it's uncomfortable for you, but it's not wrong as such. And so we use this accumulation of spiritual power to work on our character, to shift the way we relate to each other, to be not so critical, not so punitive, not so demanding, not so arrogant and egotistical. And gradually this brings us face to face with our ego. And as I said before, this final step that we all must take is the collapse of the false ego. And so this combination of meditation and study and trying to apply these ideals in practical day-to-day situations all adds up gradually to a confrontation of one's own false ego. And as time goes by, there are moments where parts of the ego will collapse in the face of our own confrontation of that. When you can see it, it dies. When you can't see it, it lives. And so the confluence age is a time when all this transformation is taking place. We also are being looked at by other people, because if you're doing a spiritual practice, people will find out and they will look at you and see, okay, you're doing a spiritual practice, so then let's see how you're doing it, what you're doing it, are you for real? And if you're not, they will not be inspired. But if you are, it is a very amazing inspiration for other people who will be moved to do something for themselves also, because they see that you are doing something for you. And they will feel, yes, I must do something for me too. And gradually it becomes a community of people who are motivated in this way. And the overall prevailing social attitudes begin to polarize. And we can see this in the world. There are some people who are just really fixed in the old ways, and they don't want to give up any little bit of their ego. They don't want to think about doing things a different way. They think the world is fine the way it is. But there's a growing number of people who think differently and who act differently and who speak differently. So you can see the society is polarizing. One part of it very much part of the Iron Age, another part of it wanting to go to what is new, to what is pure, to what is more like a new heavenly civilization. And slowly this shift is taking place. It takes time. If you think about the work of the Brahma Kumaris, which is the spiritual place of study for understanding and learning and practicing all these things. This has been going on now more than 80 years. And that's a whole lifetime for quite a few people. But as time has gone by, people have been beginning to take this up. And they have their lifetime. So just this one lifetime that we have, however many years we have left in our life, which of course we don't know. Nobody knows how long their life is, but use that time, the rest of your life, to make yourself into a beautiful mirror that reflects that beauty and wisdom of the Supreme Being. So there you have the many keys to a new world, a new civilization. But we have to continue to study, we have to continue to meditate, we have to continue to practice. And so our centers and websites are for that. And you will find many things to help you as you move along this pilgrimage of remembrance, or the return to the original home of light, to the original place of personal perfection. So let us sit together for a moment of meditation, and I will say some words that you can follow. Let yourself go deep inside. To the silent space within. Where you can be in touch with who you really are. Go deep inside and feel your soul. That tiny point of light that contains everything that you are. Love yourself. Cherish and care for yourself. Turn your mind's eye to that beautiful fountain of love that dwells beyond in the world of light. This is our source and our destination. Focus and create a beam of light between yourself and the source, the Supreme Being. Connect and hold steady. Open up and let the light flow in. Waves of spiritual energy reach you from beyond. Waves of love. Pulsations of light and power. Go deep into the stillness. Feel your heart. And see your mind communing with that higher being. Drawing in light and power. The world around us is there, and the world of light is also there. I choose to connect with the higher being, the supreme power, the beloved one. And let that energy flow through and pass into the world like a secret river, changing the atmosphere. And then let yourself come back to the regular world, but let yourself also be connected with that world of light, our source, our destination, and the Supreme One who sits there is with us. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti, sister.
Om Shanti.
That was very wonderful. I really liked what you said. I have the world of noise and the world of body consciousness around me, and also the world of light, but I choose to connect with the world of light and empower myself. So, sister, when the world around us was not making sense and sorrow, and negativity was found and felt at every corner, that's when we even more so looked up to praying or sitting in meditation to find peace and happiness. What we did when we prayed or concentrated on our breathing as a form of meditation was we slowed down the thoughts in our mind, eventually coming to a point where there's some stability. So in that time, our battery was not getting discharged. There was no leakage of energy because there was no negative thoughts coming in the mind. And that's why when we pray or sit in silence, we do feel good for some time. However, why does this feeling of goodness fade away as soon as we come in interaction? And I feel that is because we're not getting recharged. And what we have been discovering in this series is how to recharge ourselves. And as you said, the first step is to be in soul consciousness, the awareness of being a soul. I remember the story of Ravan. When Ravan was struck at the point of immortality, all the heads of vices disappear. The ego of the body consciousness gets destroyed. Sister, but we took birth in body consciousness, right? And we have created certain habits and attitudes that reflect body consciousness. For example, a liking to certain type of food, or perhaps a habit of watching movies or Netflix. Habits that are governed through the senses. So how do we change these habits and practically have control over our senses?
Well, I think we have to think about why we do that. Because if you just say to yourself, okay, I'll stop watching movies, I'll stop eating this or that kind of food, I'll stop shopping just for the sake of shopping, it will only stop for a short time. Because anyway, our willpower is not that strong. And when you decide to stop something, you're using your rather weak willpower, then you'll get disappointed because you realize that you're not able to keep any of these New Year resolutions. So the problem is twofold. I think one part of it is that we don't have the strength. So we need strength. And the other part of it is that we don't understand the origin of the problem. So these habits are not wrong in and of themselves. They're said to be wrong because they're reactions to something. They are activities that we do in order to feel better about ourselves, or in order to distract us from our pain. And unless we go into our pain and understand what the problem is, we will not really be able to make deep change. So what is our pain? Different people have different pain. And nobody has a perfect childhood. Nobody has perfect schooling. Nobody has perfect experience with their religious authorities. And yet, your parents, your teachers, and your religious leaders are the ones who shape you and who make you what you are. But they also hurt you consciously or unconsciously. And so it creates weakness, it creates moral confusion. And so these habits are reactions to that. So how do we really make deep change? I talked towards the end of the session about the ego. And the ego is really a mask that we use. We go behind this mask and we say, this is me. And the pain that we've experienced through reacting to different kinds of traumas and difficulties, and the negativity of our reaction has compounded the negativity, and then it takes the form of doing something which is also negative, and then the negative karma gets more and more, and we're trying harder and harder to get it right, and it's not succeeding. And it's because we need to study, and we need to really understand, who am I? And we need to take power so that we can become true to ourselves. We also need to be in company with people who are also like this, because we help each other to move forward. And then when you have powerful mentors, or good examples, or good friends who are, walking along this path that takes you to your real self, and you're in the world but you're not of the world, like a lotus flower. So we have a lotus life, which is also a weapon to protect us from getting pulled into old ways. And so like that, there are many methods that we use in the study to get free. It takes time.
Yeah. When you mentioned about the childhood, right? I imagined a child trying to cross a busy road and all alone, he perhaps will go front and back in fear, confused on how to cross. And then I imagine the same child to walk with his parent, holding the father's hand. He'll go across the road with such ease and such comfort. Now, I imagine why was that comfort? Why was that ease? That was because he was holding his father's hand. And now the father can't say that I'll cross the road for you, because no, the child has to make that journey. He has to cross the road himself. But holding his father's hand, he receives his protection. he receives his power and protection. So likewise, when we are connecting with our Supreme Father, the God, we're not only receiving his love, power, knowledge, but protection as we navigate in our lives. Now, I'm thinking, when we receive God's power and company, how will be our lives? How will our lives be? Like, it'll be elevated. And as you said, sister, we become the moon that reflect the light of the sun of knowledge and powers. So, sister, I was thinking more about, what is the method to communicate with the Supreme, and in what ways can we receive the answers? Could you please tell us more about that?
You know, when you come into a spiritual practice and you start to be soul conscious and you start to find out who you are, it's like you're starting a new life. And a new life starts with childhood. And so definitely you will have, while you're in an adult body, but you will still have something like another chance to be a child and to grow up. And the interesting thing about it is that you have a parent. God is called the mother father, so you have like two in one, who will give you what you need in the circumstances of adversity. The circumstances of adversity will not be changed, but the parenting will be changed. And God is also called the teacher. And so your education will be different from the kind of education you got in your school as a child. And God is also called the guru, the great spiritual teacher. And so your spiritual development will be done in a very different way from what you might have received at the hands of the religious authorities. So there's a big difference. And the circumstances of adversity when you're a child and the circumstances of adversity now are not that different. And the pain and trauma that you experienced as a child is still driving your behavior at this time. But the power and company and study that you're getting from God is giving you like another chance to be who you really are, while all of the consequences of this life's childhood are still playing out. But because you're an adult, because you're walking with God, you are able to learn in a very healthy way how to manage the different aspects of yourself, which became survival modes. And your survival mode became character defects. And this is where character defects come from, is from being in survival. And so when you are with God, close to God, studying with God, walking with God, getting filled with spiritual power, you are able to undo the damage and move forward and move on. And you will not, as other people do, pass it on to the next generation. You neutralize it. And then you become an element or a unit for a new civilization, because you get healed. The soul gets healed through God, who is also a great healer.
So, sister, when you, as we're talking about conversation with God, we actually communicate with him. So, as you said prior, that we give him we tell him about how things had gone in our day, and give him a full chart of how did my day go, analyzing my karmic account throughout the day. Maybe at the night, you might tell him, okay, this is more importantly, we don't just communicate like what we have done. We're also introspecting on how was our behavior and how could we do things better. So, because if we don't communicate it with God, how will He know? And most importantly, how will I know what I need to work on? But with that being said, is it true, sister, that when we have said something to God, right? Perhaps we might get the answer just then, or someone else the next day might come and tell us something, or I might hear something that probably would be an answer. Has this happened to you?
Well, this happens all the time because God will act on you directly and through others or through circumstances and signals. And so our positioning of the self really needs to be that I'm on the lookout for responses and really be open and learn, because life is a great teacher, and God will use the circumstances of life as an instrument to, make His points more clear. And also, we must not forget that we have to heal, because the soul has been hurt. And sometimes people don't really take that into account, that this is also a matter of healing from the duress and the stress and the torment and the uncertainty and the insecurity and so many things that people have gone through, which have distorted them. And so this is a very important part of it.
And sister, is there like in the whole entire day, is there a special time in which we could communicate with God? Because I have often heard that in scriptures and devotional talks that there is the time in the morning and also in the evening that is very special and you can communicate with God. Is there such a time?
Well, you're right. In India, time is divided into muhurat. This is this word muhurat. And because certain times are very good for certain activities, like the night time is very good for sleeping. And people who stay up all night do not get good rest if they stay up all night and then sleep all day, because they're not using time right. So the early morning hours are called the hours of nectar. The early morning hours, if you meditate at that time, is the best time to be in contact with your subconscious and to be in contact with God. It's quiet time, it's deep time, very good time. But for that, you have to have a quite disciplined life, because otherwise you burn the candle at both ends and that won't be good. The afternoon time is said to be not very good time, so a lot of people, they will take a siesta at that time. The evening time is like a confluence between the work day and the home day, so the evening is also a good time to just let go of the work day and just be with yourself and be with God. And that's called the Numasham. And they say the angels roam around at that time. So you can also roam around with the angels at that time, the time of dawn and the time of dusk. It's where the day is changing. And the evening is your social time. The day is your work time. You have to look after yourself. And then the nighttime. Nighttime is also very good for meditation, because it's quiet and everything is settling. So yeah, certain times we take advantage.
So sister, as we were discussing in our whole conversation, is this the essence of Raja Yoga? Is this the essence of Raja Yoga? The yoga with which we not only become the sovereigns of the self, because we come into the true awareness of the soul conscious awareness, but also we are connecting to the Supreme Soul to regain back the powers and virtues that we once had in the Golden Age. And as now in time when we are moving towards the doorstep to the Golden Age. So is this the essence of Raj Yoga?
To me, the essence of Raj Yoga is to become the king, to become the master, to not be a slave of our false ego. That is no way to be. And the one who can teach us this is there to teach us. And so Raj Yoga is, it's all about being in touch with the self, being the master, being the child, the student, and the follower of the Supreme Being, and making your life so that you are the individual unit of the world to come, the world of heaven, and you're in your power. You see, it's all about coming into your power and staying in your power. And pure karma.
Okay.
That's beautiful, sister. Sister La, what do you want to?
Yes, I just have to change the energy now. Otherwise, Sister Denise, thank you so much for opening your hands to give all these things, particularly time. You know, now the door to the treasure store is unlocked and standing wide open. And without this last key, the final door will not open. Because this is a time at great exchange, as you've been saying, and seekers are everywhere, wearing many disguises. Then we are here to offer the map for them to travel on. Because this is the last key, the key to open the door to the future. So besides the maps, do you have anything else you know to offer? You've been saying a lot already, but just maybe a few words that you can add. Besides the map, do you have anything you know to offer to the traveler who have to take all the keys to enlightenment?
There is one thing that I could say, and that is that everyone who travels along this path, they do it their own way. And we are a gathering of people who are spiritually motivated, spiritually inclined, but very unique. And whenever you do this kind of study, you're around others who are doing it. Everyone has their own take on it, their own interpretation. And it's very important that you understand that you are with God, you are with your fellow travelers, and you are also on your own. Being on one's own means not to be rejecting people, but to be non-dependent. Otherwise, people like to become dependent on other people, and that becomes an obstacle to spiritual practice. Or they want everybody to do things one way and not another way. But this is very, very much to honor the uniqueness of each individual and be in your own power and your own individuality, and then interact with others. You are in your power. You honor them, you recognize them, you respect them. You do not let them be dependent on you, and you do not be dependent on anyone.
Yes, actually, we should be more grateful for the opportunity to evaluate ourselves. You've been talking a lot about false ego, maybe created one, but after getting 7 keys of enlightenment, of course, we should never think that we have learned enough and now can stop. But the journey will carry on. That's why we tend to give a map. And I remember once from your public talk, you said that it's easy to learn about truth, but it takes time to be truthful. Can you say more words about how you connect truth and enlightenment?
Well, we can learn things. okay, we can learn things and we can understand many things. We can speak very well. We know all the information, but the purpose of the information is to live it. And so the key is for us to be able to let our actions do the talking, let our vibration represent what we mean. And in order to do that, we need to study the material and then do it. Go deep, take time. Spiritual work, inner work, is very deep and takes attention, concentration. It's very good if you can find someone who you resonate with, that you can have as a conversation person, that you can really work with. This helps you move forward. We should not be just passively listening or just actively speaking but not listening. We need to become this. Become.
This is the age of enlightenment. What is the science of enlightened soul? So we cannot remain ignorant, of course, about the difference between the inner world and outer world. That's why we want to reveal the secret of the universe. What's the difference between consciousness and cosmic then? Which is something to do to make us easier to reveal the secret of the universe so far.
Well, cosmic refers to looking at the big picture of the world, and not just only the dimension of matter, but also we need to understand the dimension of the spirit and to see how these two work together. And also ourselves, we are partly body, and then there's the soul. The soul is operating through the body. So I really need to know myself as a soul. And I really need to know what the false ego is, because if you don't see it, which is very difficult, you can't be free from it. And if you're not free from it, you might as well not know all this knowledge, because you can know, but it doesn't do any good unless you're really doing it. Have to walk your talk.
But you have been on the spiritual path for a long, long time. That's why you are here for us. But each second, each day is counted. You say once that spirituality is for realizing the significance of every moment and everything. So our spiritual progress will be assured. But what is the significance of your spiritual progress at the moment then? Are you exercising your self-respect in being giver? Because this is the last key is to be a giver. Like a deity, you say, it's a giver. It's not like ordinary people as consumer, and like who may exercise the ego of giving and taking. So what is really? You can say something more about that.
I think that as the years go by, and I've been doing this 4.5 decades, that's quite a while, and you're shifting, and to become completely egoless and free from the image. You create an image, you have a position, all these things are there, but that's not really the real you. So we have to go through many changes. There's one analogy that I sometimes use, which is very good. Before a lobster becomes a big lobster, he starts off really small. And this lobster has to take off his skeleton 8 times before he gets big.
Is it real? Is it true?
Real, this is true. And
really?
So we have to sort of destroy our external performance and shell at least 8 times, maybe more, before we become real mature yogis. And shedding your shell is like dropping your ego. And you have to do that a lot in order to become really authentic and free. And when you do that, you have to become very vulnerable, because a lobster without a shell, anybody can eat him up, you know.
I'm not lobster eater. I don't know. But how many shells you have left now so far? You still have some shells.
But, you know, the main thing is that when you drop one shell, your next one is bigger. So you keep growing. You grow a shell. You have to drop that and get another bigger one until you become lobster.
Anyway, so the last words that I will have to say thank you in this way. Opening the door to the future is more or less is a starting point to use the 7 keys in a practical way. At the end of this series, we would like to invite all of you who've been listening to enroll yourself in the School of Spirituality. Our aim should be to pass all subjects with honor, to become a successful student of life. I should never doubt myself in this sense. Trust in God encourages His existence, plus my own determination to create strength to move forward in progress. God is giving me everything, particularly our good company like you, Sister Denise, to proceed on the path to become more like God. Let me express my attitude of gratitude, like to God, to you, Sister Denise, and to our sweet team, and to all of you who are listening now and in the future. Hope this go viral, and I know that we have some good plan and have Sister Denise have a deep significance behind to tell many, many days more why we are here together and just reveal the secret of the universe. Thanks again for all the time and everything you've been spending time with us. I know it is not about Thailand, because I don't think that I'm Thai or Buddhist or anything at all. I'm just like you, removing my shell to be imageless. Thank you so much, and thank you, Germany, for having you there. I don't know why, but hope one day that you can come without shell being in Thailand with us.
Of course, I will, definitely. And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. So, Sister Pashwa, Brother Chai, thank you very much for being a very good team. We try to edit it more and make everything best for everyone. Thank you very much. Put my palm together and say Namaste and Sawadika.
Sawadika.
Sawadika.